In Learning Objective 5.9a, I'm going to show you how to use the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations when you cannot factor them. So first of all, we have to talk about what the quadratic formula is. And let me show you this. So jot this down, important one to know. It is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, where does a, b, and c come from? Well, this right here is the standard format of a quadratic equation. So to find a, b, and c, you're just going to find the number in front of x squared is a, number in front of x is b, and the number by itself is c. Now, this is a formula. The easiest way to memorize it is to really sing it to a song. And if you remember kind of the song Pop Goes the Weasel to kind of the Jack in the Boxes as a little kid, here's a way to do it. So let me just kind of go through it and see if you can catch on to it. It'll say x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I promise you, if you try singing that a couple of times, you will be surprised about how quickly you actually know this formula by heart. All right, let's use the formula to solve this. And let me show you why we might use it and might not use it. Is this equation factorable? Can you solve it by factoring, which we did in the last section? This one's actually kind of interesting. I need to break up the x squared into x and x. I need things that factors of 3, 3 and 1. So I'm going to do plus 3 plus 1. And I'm going to actually see if that works. That's 3x, that's 1x, that's 4x. It actually worked. So then remember, what you would do is take the factors and set them equal to 0 and solve. So we get x is negative 3 and then x is negative 1. So I suggest if you can factor and solve, use that method. But if you can't, you have to use the quadratic formula. And I want to walk through this one and show you how the quadratic formula works. And I'm going to prove to you we're going to get the exact same answers. So I'm going to review the song again and write down the formula. So join me if you want. It goes x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, now let's jot down a, b, and c. So if I look at this equation, a is the number in front of x squared, it's a 1. B is the value in front of x, it's a 4. And c is the number by itself, which is 3. And all you do is plug it in and simplify. So here we go. Negative of the b was a 4, plus or minus. I'm going to put b in parentheses and square it, minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, first round of simplification, I'm going to keep the negative b, plus or minus. 4 squared is 16. I'm going to do 4 times 1 times 3 is 12. All over 2 times 1 is 2. This becomes negative 4 plus or minus. 16 minus 12 is 4 all over 2. Now the square root of 4 we know is 2. So I'm going to write negative 2 plus or minus 2 all over 2. Now be careful. Don't start crossing off that 2 and that 2. You have to keep this whole top half together. So let me first do this. I want to find out where the two answers come from because I know the answers are negative 3 and negative 1. Well, here's what you do. Once you have it down to this, you're going to take it and break it into its two pieces based on that plus or minus. So the first one's going to be the negative 4. I'll do the plus 2 all over 2. And the next is negative 4 minus 2 all over 2. Now you need to simplify, look at the top together. So negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2 all over 2. The last thing you do is look at the complete fraction. Do negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. That's where this answer comes from. Okay, let's complete the other one. Negative 6 or negative 4 minus 2 is negative 6, all divided by 2. Now to do the divided by 2, which is negative 3, and there's our second answer. Now, remember when we factored 2, you can't do it until everything is on one side. Quadratic formula works the same way. So with this one, I'm going to bring everything on one side first. I'm going to do plus 36. Keep it in standard format, x squared minus 12x plus 36 equals 0. Now let me show you how to apply the quadratic formula. I'm going to identify a, b, and c. So a is 1, b is negative 12, c is 36. And let's set it up. So it goes x equals negative b in this case is negative 12, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, which is 1. Now to simplify, be careful. This negative and negative makes it a positive, so it becomes x equals a plus 12, plus or minus. Negative 12 squared is negative 12 times negative 12, or 144. 36 times 1 is 36. 36 times 4 is 144, all over 2. Now watch this. This is 12 plus or minus the square root of 0 all over 2. Square root of 0 is 0. This is 12 over 2, which equals 6. Now this is a special case because since this whole side is 0, the plus and minus side kind of fizzled out. It goes away because it's plus or minus 0, so it doesn't matter. This particular quadratic equation only has one answer. The answer is 6. So when the number under the square root becomes 0, that's what happens, is the one answer transpires. Okay, well, let's do another one. Now, if I tried to factor this, it wouldn't work, so I'd have to use quadratic formula. It's in standard format, so let's go ahead and try this. A equals 1, b is negative 5, c is 7. I'm going to set it up. X equals negative b would be negative of negative 5, or plus 5, plus or minus the square root, let's do b squared, minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's 5 plus or minus. Negative 5 squared is negative 5 times negative 5, or 25. 4 times 1 times 7 is 28 over 2. This is 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 3 over 2. Now, for now, when we see the square roots of a negative, that to us means it's not a real solution. So this means not a real number. Means you can't see it. The square root of a negative number is not visible in the real world. It's called imaginary. So we say it's not a real solution, and we just keep it at that. We're not going to simplify this any further because as of now we don't know how to handle the square roots of negatives. You will learn that later on in the year. Okay, let's look at this one and see what we get. So here a is 2, b is 8, c is 4. Let's put that in the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Simplifies to negative 8 plus or minus 8 squared is 64. 4 times 2 is 8 times 4 is 32 all over 4. This becomes negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 32 over 4. Now remember, we learned how to handle square roots. Are there any perfect squares you can yank out of here? You have to be careful because 16 times 2 is 32, which means I can do square root of 16 and square root of 2. The square root of 16 is the number 4, and I would keep the square root of 2. So this actually simplifies to negative 8 plus or minus. The square root of 32 is the same as this 4 times the square root of 2, so we put that there instead, all over 4. Okay, now it's all set up because there's You know, these three pieces are all crunched together. Now you can break it off to the plus and minus on its 2 points. So the first one I'm going to write is I'm going to do right here. I'll do 8 plus 4 times the square root of 2 over 4. And then I'll do the other one, 8 minus 4 times the square root of 2 over 4. Okay. Now what they tend to do from this point is they will actually simplify it further. They will do this 4 down here. They'll break it up into this component and this component. And then they'll do it on this one too. They'll break it up this way and this way. And if you do that, what you'll get is 8 over 4 plus 4 times the square root of 2 over 4. Now be careful, this simplifies into 8 over 4 is 2, 4 divided by 4 is 1, so it actually becomes 2 plus the square root of 2. The bottom one, when I break it up, it's 8 over 4 minus 4 times the square root of 2 over 4. Again, 8 over 4 is 2, and then I do minus 4 divided by 4 is 1, square root of 2. So the two answers here are 2 plus the square root of 2 and 2 minus the square root of 2. So with the quadratic formula, you're either going to get two real answers like this. You might get one answer, like we did on the other slide, or you're going to get a square root of a negative number, which means there's no real solution.